Marty Brounstein, will talk about his fascinating factual book about courage, compassion, and World War II history for Jews living in Holland.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program that encompasses a diverse spectrum of topics important to our community, which we hope will both inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy the program.
Hello, I'm Rusty King, and we have a wonderful show for you today. It covers a subject that you'll think you already know about, and I guarantee you don't know this perspective. We have a wonderful author, and he's written a book called Two Among the Righteous Few, A Story of Courage and the Holocaust. He's an author on a journey with a wonderful mission. Please welcome Marty Brounstein.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Now, what I want to start with is writing books. You had written some books before, but nothing like this. So it's a subject, and I'm wondering, how did the subject cross paths with you in your life?
Yes, good question. Previous, in my management consulting work, I've done 7 books as an author, contributing author, or solo author. This 8th book here is so different.
Yeah.
And it's a book I stumbled into by accident about 3.5 years ago. My wife is originally from the Netherlands, and her family immigrated when she was near 14. Okay. And in spring of 2009, it had been 25 years since she had been last back to her homeland.
Okay.
And she'd been talking about, we got to go visit, and I'd never been.
Right.
And so we go in May of 2009, having a wonderful trip along the way.
Yeah.
And about 3-4 weeks into it, we come into this area in southeastern Netherlands, an area of small towns and villages. And I don't know quite what she's wanting to do, but we're going to go check some things out.
Right.
And she's, in essence, trying to find her beginnings here.
For you, it's just now your wife would like to go on a vacation, and you say, sure. Next thing you know, you're in Holland.
Yes.
Okay, and it's leading right up to what happens next.
That's right. So we come into this small town area, in the big small town in the area, a town called Ravenstein.
Okay.
And in this little town, there's a tourist information office. So she goes in, and she's still fluent in Dutch, and she's asking the staff members on hand, because there's no traffic in there of people.
Right.
Do you know of a home of a person named Franz Weinacher? It used to be next to this old church in a town called Dieden, I think is near here. And they light up, because he's notable in that area. He's not alive today.
Right, right.
And they not only tell us how to get to that home, they say, about 10 minutes, and yes, that old church's landmark is still there.
Yeah.
But one of the sons lives in this particular house.
Is that right?
And so off we go down the road. There's a lot of serendipity here, because who knows if we'd ever find the place.
Sure.
And not only do we find the house, but in this, it was a warm day. There's 3 people sitting in the front yard at a table having a cup of coffee when we show up, and we walk up there. And I'm just kind of following along going, I'm not sure what she's doing.
Yeah.
And in the Netherlands as a kid, my wife is Leah Bars. She was known, her Dutch nickname, Ineke.
Okay.
And that's how they know her. And so she just walks right up, sees the gentleman sitting there, says, I think that's one of the brothers.
Wow.
Puts out her hand and says, hi, I'm Ineke Bars. And he just lights up.
Oh, my gosh.
Because he hasn't seen her in 25 years. That's when she was last there.
Right.
And so this is the beginning of this journey of getting connected to the story of what their parents, Franz and Weinacher, did, which is quite remarkable.
Okay, and that story ties right in, especially with this word righteous.
Yes.
Tell us how that is.
Yes. Two Among the Righteous Few, A Story of Courage in the Holocaust, and that is the key word, righteous, in the title. And it comes from a place called Yad Vashem. That's the Holocaust Memorial and Educational Museum in Jerusalem, Israel.
Okay.
And it was the first of its kind. Today there's plenty of Holocaust museum and education centers.
So this is a special museum celebrating the righteous few?
No, celebrates the wrong word, but it's about the Holocaust. It's education and remembrance.
Yes.
There's a section within the museum.
I see. Okay.
Called Righteous Among the Nations.
Yes.
And in the grounds in support of that is called the Avenue of the Righteous. And that's where you see the plaques and the trees planted to people who've gotten this special designation.
Okay.
Well, who are these people? These were non-Jews who, during the course of the Holocaust, risked their own lives to help save the lives of Jews. Probably the one that people are most aware of from the movies, Schindler's List.
Yes.
Oscar Schindler.
Okay.
He's righteous among the nations, heroic designation. Franz and Mien Weinacher, this young Dutch married couple, are also Oscar Schindlers. They too have received this award because of their courageous acts during the Holocaust.
And they did this on a family level and brought them right into their homes.
Yes. They were what they were involved in doing was a couple things. They helped hide some people into their home, And Franz would actually serve in like a broker and going to the small towns in his area and asking people, could you take somebody into your home?
Right.
And between those efforts, with a lot of dangers and challenges, they'll help save the lives of over 24 Jews from certain death.
Is that right? And one of the remarkable parts, they were Christians.
That's right.
So they were Catholic.
That's right.
And this is the melding of religion that's so incredible about your book.
Absolutely.
Wow.
To them, it was about doing the right thing.
Yes. So let's go back with their story a little bit. They had lived in this town, probably their families forever. Now, I'm sure they had children of their own at this time.
Yes. Part of what adds to the challenge of this
yes.
is during the war, they already have, by the end of 1942, they have 4 small children, all under the age of 5.
Oh, my gosh.
Which, if you're a parent, you cringe at that thought.
Right.
And then you have the difficulties and the conditions of the war because Holland was an occupied nation under Nazi Germany control.
Right.
And so then they get involved in what I often refer to as this special business, and it starts in spring of 43, where they're starting to help Jewish refugees.
Right.
Because if you've been in hiding,
yeah.
you haven't been caught yet by the German authorities, eventually you're going to get caught unless someone can help you.
Right.
And if you get caught, you go to the death camps in Poland.
Right. And not only if you get caught, but the people helping you.
The risk is tremendous.
So they've done this, Franz and Mien, under the threat of death?
Absolutely.
Torturous death. I mean, shot on sight.
You could be executed, and commonly you just got to go on the trains to the concentration camps too.
Wow.
So your life will be over one way or the other if you get caught. So the dangers are real and were real. And people, some who tried to help, do get caught.
Yes.
But not many get involved.
Right. I can imagine that. You know, you can just weigh it against today. Like, would you go out of your way to help? You know, if someone's car's broken down, do you stop to help them? But these people are putting their lives on the line.
Absolutely.
Let alone having 4 young children and trying to keep a secret.
Exactly.
Right? That had to be very difficult.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
And a lot of challenges that came along the way, because this will take place over a nearly 2-year period.
That's what I was going to ask. I made a note of that, how long it was. 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
Wow.
And often when I've talked to audiences about the story, I put it in this context, is I always say, how would you like to have company at your house? You know, you had it.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, and how long do you want them to stay? And most people say 3 days is enough. Send them out. In this case, of course, all the people they were helping were strangers.
Yes.
And you didn't know how long this was going to last.
Right.
And you didn't know if Holland would ever get liberated.
Right.
So you had all of that on top of this, plus the dangers you raised of if you get caught.
Yes.
Look out.
Yes.
So it makes what they did so remarkable.
So they'd had to have a hidden room, no doubt, in their house. If someone came to the door, everyone gets in that room.
Well, they didn't have that originally when they started it on this.
Okay.
And
they had cover stories, perhaps, for the people while they were there?
Many of the people they took in, they gave false Dutch identity names to. But if they thought there was a potential raid in the early going, run out onto the dike. They were near this dike in the river, and you can maybe hide in the fields. But that wasn't the easiest or the best.
Right.
The first adult they'll take into hiding comes in the fall of 1943.
Yes.
A gentleman named Lou.
Okay.
The neat thing about Lou, he was an architect by trade. He'd been hiding in Amsterdam, was able to sneak out.
Great.
And then he'll help design and build with Franz a hiding room in their home.
Wow.
Which by the start of 1944, when the German presence increases in that area, it's going to be valuable.
Yeah. Because Holland was neutral in World War I and wanted to be neutral in World War II.
Right.
But they were occupied.
That's right. They didn't have that choice.
Right, right.
Germany was conquering throughout all of Europe.
Right.
And Holland in May of 1940 gets conquered.
Wow.
And then the occupation will be 5 miserable years for the Dutch.
Wow. Let's give another contrast of what's going on here, because early on, when Franz and Mien first moved into this house, before all this happens, they move into the house and they ask the priest to come and bless the crucifix they're going to hang out.
You like that part,
and he doesn't even want to come in because Protestants had lived there in that house.
Yes.
So this is how, you know, people are set in their ways.
Yeah.
And so the thought of going to rescue Jews under the penalty of death, these were remarkable people.
That's right.
Wow.
The house itself was covered through, I think it was the Dutch Reformed Church, Protestant church.
Okay.
And one time it was a parsonage for them.
Yes.
And now they didn't have much of a Protestant presence in that area. Other parts of the country very much. But the Catholics and Protestants had their own societies in the Netherlands.
Right.
And so when this priest, Father Johannes Simons, when they're renting the house, comes in, and it was a common thing, you come to a new house, you get the parish priest to come and bless it.
Yes.
The minute, as you said, he heard about that, he was already getting a little bothered. You know, Protestant clergy used to live in here. That's terrible.
Right.
What are you doing here?
Yes.
Franz had a certain way about him that he didn't always,
Yeah.
I'll say, comply with authority. And his reaction to all that is, well, you're blessing the cross we have here. He won't mind, I don't think.
Right. That's nice.
And that's going to be a trigger thing in terms of how Franz is throughout this. There was something different
Yes.
about him.
Yes.
He didn't always mindlessly obey or follow rules.
I got that from reading the book. I got that same feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they have their 4 young children, and now
Right.
the first person you said happened to be an architect, which is
First adult, not the first person.
adult. First person was a 14-year-old girl.
That's right.
Turned 15 when she got there.
That's right.
Okay, tell us a little bit about her.
Yes.
Because we're kind of warming up to all of them that came and
That's
how
right.
he placed them.
That's right. And one of the things that happens here is this is something that Franz and me kind of stumble into by accident themselves.
Yes.
Franz, during the war, to give just a quick little background to what you're asking,
Yeah.
he took a leave of absence from his job. He worked at a grain mill at the town over, and he's now traveling by train to the major cities in the West. It's about a 2-hour train ride, like to
Yes.
Amsterdam. And he takes meat and eggs he can get in the countryside, and he's selling it in the cities because food is like that, is in high
Yes.
demand and low supply.
Yes.
And he's building a little business. Well, he calls upon this doctor acquaintance he'd done business with before in Amsterdam this day in spring of 1943.
Yes.
Before he leaves the meeting, the doctor turns to him and says, "Would you be willing to help?
Okay.
We've got this young girl in hiding here in the city,
Wow.
and we'd love to get her out because the German presence was very strong in
Yes.
the city, and many of the Jews had already been deported." And he's explaining, and you just may take her for 3 weeks to where you live there in the countryside.
Yes.
What's the town? Dieden. Yeah. And by the way, she's Jewish.
Yes.
Would you be willing to help? Okay.
Wow.
He didn't exactly know what he was signing up for.
Sure.
So he'll come home with her, and he only knows her by her false Dutch identity name, Freitje.
Right.
Her real name is Shula Love. She's a German Jewish girl
Right.
who got out of Germany at the end of 1938,
Okay.
after the Holocaust was turning very violent in Germany,
Yeah.
before the war,
Yeah.
with her siblings. They couldn't get their parents. The Netherlands was
Yes.
willing to take unaccompanied children, was the expression.
Yeah.
They'll
Let me
eventually
just
go on.
ask
Go
you,
ahead.
in the middle of this, is this before or after, and I don't know the German term for it, but the night of the crystal glass?
Kristallnacht.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, the night
Was
of
this-
broken glass.
Has this happened yet?
Yes.
So that's already happened, and they've already...
And that's why the Dutch government was willing to take in a few thousand
Yes.
unaccompanied children, refugees out of Germany and Austria.
Yes.
And so that's where she and her 5 siblings will be able to get out.
Okay.
They'll never see their parents again.
Yeah.
But then life goes on okay for a couple of years
Yeah.
until the occupation gets worse and the deportation starting.
So people know at this point when he's accepting to do this that this is a life or death thing.
He doesn't quite understand it at the
He
beginning.
okay.
And now what's interesting about Freitje, because the idea was take her just for 3 weeks.
Yes.
She's going to stay longer than that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we often talk about is, and you see it a little bit in the book, as she made a new life in the Netherlands living with this family,
Yeah.
one of the girlfriends that she made friends with who was similar in age down the block
Yes.
was also a German Jewish girl whose whole family got out in the early 30s when whole families could.
Okay.
They try to stay hiding in Amsterdam.
Yes.
They'll eventually get caught. This was a girl named Anne Frank.
Of course, another name we all know.
Yeah.
Wow.
So luckily Freitje got out of the city.
Right.
Or Shula, her real name.
Wow. And knowing the Anne Frank story, then we can really put this in perspective, you know, what it is. What
You were
he's-
going to get caught sooner or later
Oh
if you
my
stayed there.
gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So they do bring her, it goes well.
Yes.
And
That's the beginning.
yes. Now eventually he begins, he has to keep it a secret from the priest.
Oh, absolutely.
From the town police because they,
The police chief was also another thorn.
Yes.
Who was always wanting to cozy up with the Nazis.
Right,
Be on
right.
their good side. So
Yeah.
he was a threat.
right. And another little contrast I thought was rather charming was one of the young ladies was quite cute, and the policeman wants to ask her out, and you know, just kind of that.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, all those kinds of little challenges to big challenges that come up. And as this
Right.
goes on, they'll begin to figure out, boy,
Yes.
this is dangerous. And when I reflect
Yes.
back on it, when I think of the different challenges and then the dangers that start to become very real,
Yes.
I'm kind of, I always say, stunned
Yes.
because they actually persisted. Most
Yeah.
people would have quit. And
Exactly
just said, sorry, folks,
right.
too dangerous. I don't want
Yeah.
to risk my family or myself anymore. Go away,
Yeah.
sorry.
And I realized too by reading your book that one point in there, at least I can think of immediately, is when Mean had second thoughts about it, because she felt like, you know, we have to have more children, and you know, we can't do that with all the people in the house.
It's not so much as second thoughts as it was at one time what could have been the first adults they took into hiding.
Yes.
We're saying, we can come here and we'll pay you well to take us in, but you've got these children. There was already now 3 children in the home that they had taken in.
Yeah.
And you can't keep the children because children won't know any better.
Yeah.
Mean was a very strong woman.
Yes.
And her response was, the children stay. If you wish to come, you can come.
Yes.
But we do not send the children away.
Good, good.
So she was the backbone, the strength behind what Franz was doing.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. We're about halfway through our show, and I want to make sure that we touch on different things, that you're interested in. So we know the significance of the title, particularly, which means so much. And then the challenge. There was a young couple that had a pregnancy. And that brought a lot of danger or challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Tell us about that.
That architect.
Yes.
Was that part of that young couple.
Oh, okay.
Similar in age to Franz and Meen, who were late 20s, early 30s.
Yes.
And initially when he came there, he's not with his wife, who actually got out a little bit afterwards, that Franz placed in the home of a friend.
Yes.
But eventually she gets sent away.
Yes.
Luckily is able to have a reunion with her husband.
Wow. Because
she's able to find Franz and Meen's home somewhat by accident.
Yeah.
And now after coming, Angeline is her name, now Lou and Angeline.
Yeah.
She has to reveal a secret she can't keep secret any longer, that she's pregnant. And that's a huge challenge.
Yes.
One of the options that Franz and Meen had was send her away.
Right.
But the challenge of if they're going to keep her, and it was left up to them. They talked to their contact in the resistance and said, you decide, I'm going to let you handle it.
Yeah.
You can't take her to a hospital.
Right.
Because she'll be arrested right away.
Right.
You can't find a doctor in the local area very hard. Not many there anyway in the small town area, but most of the authorities watch them. Sorry, wish I could help you, but they're not going to, most of them won't want to go near this.
Right.
If you wish to bring a midwife to their home, at this point in time, they already had at least 8 people hiding and residing in their home, so you don't want to have more exposure.
Yeah.
So this is to your question. This is all part of the challenges that they will deal with. I always say Chapter 9 answers. They'll perform a miracle.
Yeah, and then if you get through all that and you have a crying baby in a hidden room.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, that really puts into perspective what they're up against. And
That's right.
Still answered the call.
They did.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
They actually perform a miracle.
Yeah.
To get it done.
Wow.
And if I can add one little thing with that is, and it deals with that poster up there too, the person in that picture, is one of the things that they decide as a strategy in this, however they're going to get this done, is that when the baby is born, however we get it done, we'll register her with the authorities as our own child.
Okay.
So that she could be with our children in greater likelihood of safety.
Yes.
Then we don't have to worry about a baby crying and hiding.
Yes.
Those kinds of things.
I see.
So they really do show a lot of courage and compassion here.
That's incredible. There should be a monument built to them. There really should.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, we have a punchline at the end of all this we're going to get to, and this may lead into it. I want to read this exactly as it's to be asked. In the book's dedication, you mention Franz and Meen directly and say, to your selfless acts of courage, I am eternally grateful. What's the meaning behind that?
Great question. Good timing. Well, as we're talking about that couple with the baby.
Yes.
Their name, Lou and Angeline Bars. And that baby will be born and then given a false identity name for a little while.
Oh my gosh.
And 5.5 years ago, I married that baby.
Oh my gosh.
Partly why we were exploring in that area at that time.
Why
my wife's beginnings are there under these very dire circumstances.
She was rescued by these very people.
That's right. Among the 24 people they will rescue will be this young couple and their baby that they make happen there.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's a very special thing that family today, because Franz and Meen aren't alive, but the 5 children of theirs are very proud of their parents. And they have a special attachment to my wife, who they know as Inika.
Yes.
Because they view her almost like a half-sister.
I bet they do. Now to have her walk right back in their lives as they're sitting in the
It's
front
been a great reunion.
Oh my gosh.
And they supported us in doing this book.
Spectacular.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I can just tell a quick story. When
of course.
We were back to the Netherlands for a visit 2011.
Yeah.
And when Nellie, the oldest of the children, who was our point person in helping us with the book, heard we were coming, she said, well, you have to stay with us. And we spent 3 days with her, had a wonderful visit.
Yeah.
And as we were leaving, and she doesn't speak a lot of English, none of the siblings at that level, their children will, but she turns and said in English to me, when you coming back? That's when you know you had a good visit.
Yeah.
And then in tears, she comes and she hugs my wife.
Yeah.
And says, goodbye, my war sister.
Oh my gosh. That's absolutely amazing.
So we've been fortunate in this journey.
You have. You have. Now that leads us up to, how's all this received I know you're doing a lot of speaking engagements.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes.
And are you speaking at temples, at churches, or
All of the
who's
above.
interested?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. I already know the answer to this, but let's tell the viewing audience.
Yes. Since the book came out in the fall of 2011, in my first year of the journey, I had done 80 events.
Okay.
And into 2013, this continues over 100 now.
Wow.
And I've shared this story, talked about the story in bookstores, churches,
Yes.
synagogues, Jewish community centers, an Indian community center,
Nice.
workplaces, schools.
Wow.
People have hosted parties in their homes. So if anybody who's listening today wants to be a supporter for us, please help us.
Yes.
And that's where we've been able to get some support of people bringing us to those places.
Yes.
And then some, Rotary clubs. And so far, what keeps me going on this journey with the mission is I have an important story that people get a lot of messages, but people keep telling me, you have to keep telling that story.
Absolutely
So I
true.
always say in baseball terms, I'm batting 1,000 with audience response.
Right, right. It's so wonderful because it crosses nationalities, it crosses religions.
That's right.
It's human nature at its finest.
Exactly.
And I know it inspires us to be better.
Yes.
You know, and
well put.
In smaller ways, but to grow into that. I mean, this is greatness. And look at the direct tie into your life. It's
That's
incredible.
right. And I think what you're describing too is today I tell people I'm now in the interfaith business.
Yes.
Because I have a story, a true
Yes.
story of Christians helping Jews
Absolutely.
because it was the right thing to do in a climate of hate and
That's
indifference
right.
when most
Yeah.
wouldn't do that.
And even a priest who's concerned that the wrong Christianity was near.
Well, and also concerned that you should be helping Jews anyway.
Right.
He was a
my
constant
gosh.
thorn to them.
Yes.
So you weren't going to look for him for the right example.
No, not
But
at
they
all.
had the moral character and courage to say, we
That's
know right from wrong, and if
incredible.
we can help, we're going to do it.
Yes. Yeah. That's who they are.
That's
I mean,
right.
they prove that.
Yes.
Wow.
And you can see why they're righteous among the nations, why they were real
Yes.
heroes. Those are true heroes. That's a misused word.
That's
they
right.
were heroes. They will
That's
save
right.
people's lives when they didn't have to.
That's right. They were ordinary people doing it. I mean, you know,
That's
there's
right.
heroes in wartime. There's soldiers that are heroes, but ordinary people in their own home,
That's right.
you know?
In their own community.
Yes.
With dangers there
Yeah.
if you get involved.
And really, it's kind of, to add a note of comedy to it, is that you're absolutely right. I can think of my best friends, and I don't want them staying at my house more than 3 days.
That's right.
So to risk your life for strangers because it's the right thing to do.
That's right. And you don't know how
Absolutely
long it's going to
incredible.
last.
Yeah, and that's another good reminder. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
No idea.
And what they certainly are facing in Netherlands,
Yes.
as an occupied country under Nazi Germany's control,
Yeah.
the Netherlands will suffer the worst of all Western European nations.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
It'll become a reign of terror eventually. They're going
Sure.
to impose a brutal will on the Dutch people.
Yes.
They'll go through a hunger winter in the last winter of the war. Well, 15,000 people will starve to death. So they're suffering anyway, the general Dutch population.
Yes.
And then the Jewish population, of course, is targeted as the #1 people to eliminate.
Right.
And most then weren't going to get involved and help them. They'll lose over 75% of their Jewish population.
Oh my gosh.
So this is all the situation that they're living under.
Right.
So to do what they do, when you look at that,
Yeah.
quite remarkable.
Right. You know, if people at home just think where they sit right now and picture the army/police just coming right in and going through your whole house looking for someone.
That's right.
You know,
How scary that would be.
how absolutely frightening.
Yes.
Under the penalty of death.
That's
No,
right.
They're not just going to take you for 30 days
That's
in
right.
county jail. You know.
And you had going on at the same time, part of the brutal rule is that the Germans were often coming and searching homes
Yes.
to find people that they would ship off to go work in Germany in the factories to keep the war machine running.
Right.
350,000 Dutch citizens get shipped into what was called forced labor.
Oh my gosh.
And 30,000 don't come home alive from it. So
Wow.
life in the Netherlands was very difficult during this
Right.
time. And then you've got what's happening to the Jewish population on top of it.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Right. You know, you think in today's world, you hear a good cause and they would like you to donate to it. And that's wonderful, but look at this. This
Yes.
is risking your entire life.
Well said.
Very
Yeah.
incredible. Now, we have about 5 minutes left. Anything particular you can think of I might have missed? Or I did ask you how the audience are receiving you, and you're batting 1,000.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's good.
That's right. And,
Yeah.
and I'm really working to keep that journey going
Yes.
so that people can hear the story.
Yes.
Because we get told it's the courage and compassion to do the right thing. It's a story of ethics.
Yes.
It's a story of interfaith care for one another. These
Yes.
kinds of messages coming out. So if anything, that's what I never expected to happen out of this.
Right.
That's what keeps me going and doing that, so that I hope more people will come to hear the talks, to come help us make the talks happen.
Yes. I'm noticing here that you mentioned Otto Frank and Corrie
Tenboom.
How are you pronouncing the last name?
Tenboom.
Tenboom.
Boom.
They've been special inspirations for you?
Uh-huh.
Is there something that...
I'll explain briefly about each. Otto Frank was the father of Anne Frank. And
Okay.
he's the only member of the family that will survive from the concentration camps.
Okay.
Well, after, when he comes back, one of the people that had been helping them had found the diaries of Anne Frank.
Yes.
And gave them to Otto. And he's the one, while it's called the Diaries of Anne Frank, it's really the work of Otto Frank.
I see.
He made it his life's work and mission to try to get the story out. And
Right.
will spend the rest of his life till he dies in his age 90s, and eventually, of
Wow.
course, the story has huge recognition.
Yes.
So that's inspiring to me, and it says he thought that was important.
Absolutely.
Similar to what I'm doing. Corrie Tenboom
Yeah.
was like a Franz and Mean. She's also recognized righteous among the nations.
Yes.
And she's an example of, she was a very devout Christian. Their family lived in Haarlem in the Netherlands.
Okay.
They get caught.
Oh, boy.
She'll be the only one from her family to survive. She'll spend time in the concentration camp, but survives.
Right.
Well, she thought after the war she should just keep sharing her experience, and more
Wow.
importantly, talk about importance, how it is to be a true Christian, to care for one another like they did during the war.
Yes.
And so she goes about till she dies and gets buried in
Wow.
Santa Ana, California for 40 years, sharing her story around the world, because
Right.
the message of help one another carries on. So those
That's
people,
gonna
I
be
say,
you.
yes,
That's going to
maybe,
be you, I
maybe.
think.
But
Oh, my
I can see what
gosh.
they did, and I see now why they did what they did.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you
for
much.
bringing this story to us. Congratulations on your wonderful wife
Thank
and
you.
marriage.
And thank God for the courage and compassion of Franz and Mean Weinacher.
Absolutely. True heroes.
Yes.
True heroes. Thank you for being with us. Also, our studio audience, our guests at home. The book is Two Among the Righteous Few, A Story of Courage in the Holocaust.